going into the Q&A now for the warm belly rub principle. And so let's go ahead and dive in. Emily, any questions or thoughts that we have on the warm belly rub?
Yeah, I want to know, how do you do warm belly rubs but balance it out where you're not doing too much that you make someone feel entitled?
Well, the warm belly rub is kind of, I wouldn't say it's not connected, because I see that there's a connection. The warm belly rub is bringing the unconscious to a conscious level and teaching that this is really, really important. I think entitlement comes where we're doing things for people and they don't appreciate that we're doing them. And so one of the things I love about being a grandfather, I remember when Daniel, who is now 7, and Trevor, who is now 5, when Daniel was 5 and Trevor was probably 2 or 3, something like that. And they were at Grandpa's house, and Trevor and we were going on a walk together, and Trevor said he needed Grandpa's, to tie his shoes. And he was at an age, and like, I don't know, does he know how to tie them? Does he not? And I discerned that he probably needed help in tying them, so I tied his shoe. And Daniel said, Grandpa, can you tie my shoes too? Now, as a dad, I would have said, no, son, you're old enough, tie them yourself. But as a grandpa, I'm like, maybe he wants the tactile. He's a really touchy-feely kind of guy. I love his personality. He's a double expressive, and then he's a expressive amiable. So expressive, amiable. So really people. So I thought, well, maybe he just wants the tactile. Maybe he wants Grandpa to hug him. Maybe he wants Grandpa to, just the feel of Grandpa's tying his shoes or, wrestling with him or whatever. So understanding that in business has helped, because it's weird because, Emily, the same thing is true in business that's true in raising children. That's why Business Sense from Everyday Moms, it's why Grandpa's Magic Couch partners with them, because there's so much at the seed level that can be learned from Business Sense from Everyday Moms. So kids, like employees, I think a lot of times, children want to do things they can't do, and as soon as they can do them, they don't want to do them. So when they can't do the dishes, they want to do the dishes, and when they can do the dishes, they don't like doing the dishes. Same thing is true with employees, I think. And so why is that? Kind of the human nature is we want a new challenge. We want to do something that we can't do. But I think entitlement comes from doing things and then people taking it for granted. One of the things, Emily, that I did, not so much for the younger ones, and maybe that's why there's some challenges there, I'm not sure, but for the older ones, when they were preteens even, and I felt that they weren't thankful for my wife or I and what we were doing for them, I'd give them, 1 or 2 warnings, and then I would just go ahead and say, you know what, guys, Dad has to speak one more time, and you're going to go ahead and work the hours that Dad works for a day, 2 days, 3 days. And I think the top they ever did it was 2 or 3 days. And it always seemed like when I was working 15 to 18-hour days, and it's amazing, and they would, spend more time in school or helping Mom around the house, or they just couldn't play or, do anything, videos or anything like that. And I remember coming home and them saying, oh, Dad, you're home finally. And I'm like, oh, I'm not done working yet. Oh, Dad. And they became appreciative of that. So I think there's a tendency in human beings to not be thankful and grateful, to be entitled. And I think when we take away things, Emily, that helps to take away the entitlement, and making sure that our kids and our employees and the owner of our company and leaders, all of us are thankful and grateful. Great question. Does that help, Emily?
Yeah.
Cool. Don, questions, thoughts you have?
There's a lot in there. I was kind of thinking, the thought came to my mind of, it's for some reason the things in the imagination seem more exciting and thrilling and worthy of our attention than the reality. When we get into the practical application, but how do we monetize that concept?
Well, I think that when we look at the BOSS system, the business operating system, the engine that runs our business, and the 3 DNAs, DNA for people, DNA for business, DNA for life, I think these kind of like Grandpa's magic couch is there's deep, profound understanding that has come from raising 7 kids and now having 5 grandchildren, another one on the way, where I think a lot of times adults think that they're not as entitled as children are. They think they're hard workers. They think they don't come up with excuses. I think they don't whine. They think a lot of things. But in my experience, I expect more from my grandkids, even though there's 3 girls, twin girls that are 2.5, and then Lily, who's 2.5, and then my grandson who's 7, and then grandson who's 5. I expect more from them than I do from adults. And I realized that probably about 3-4 years ago, Don. And I said, that's just not fair. And so I think, the dog ate the homework. I didn't get it done. I wasn't feeling good. I think learning to raise expectations of adults on themselves and on one another, Don, that's going to make us all more productive. And if we're more productive, obviously we're going to go ahead and earn more money, work less hours. Thoughts, questions, insights on that, Don?
I'm not sure if it truly relates, but one of the things I was listening to Leverage the Course the other night, and one of the things that talked about there on there was having 5 seconds of courage, and of course the concept of listening to mutual benefit, and these are all concepts that, like you were talking about tactfully, how you can teach somebody what to say, a process, a system, but how do you teach them those kind of natural law things? The only way that they can really learn it is through practical application over and over and over again until they get good at it. I was talking with Steve, and I was saying to him, one of the things that I hate to do is, or I shouldn't use the word hate, but I do not like to do is cold calling. But I know in my business from time to time I get to the point where I realize I need to do some cold calling. I need to interject some cold calling into my system. And I would say it's not more than the 3rd call into that, I realize, man, I'm good. I should make a living out of it. I'm that good. And, so it takes it from there. It's really one of those things where we have to sometimes just force ourselves to do the things that we don't really like to do and get past it.
Well, and that's where I was looking. I didn't find it on this one here. We'll work to get it next week on the internalization, which comes out of leverage. When people say, I understand it. And it's like, no, not really. I mean, you understand, I understand math. Well, you understand addition. Maybe you understand, subtraction. Maybe not, calculus. And so it's interesting because, we've been talking a lot, Don, about the capturing where area 2 pre-sales isn't working. So a number of people in the community are, having challenges with engagement. So sending out emails, and they, driving hundreds of people to a landing page, but only have one or two people register. And so Rosanna was making calls yesterday, and she said, I didn't really understand what the psychology of people, webinar was, didn't want to look stupid. So I read the web page, the sign-up page. And so she said, I got somebody actually to return my call, which, in today's world, nobody returns phone calls. And so it's like, that's a win. So somehow her message resonated. Then the woman said, how much does it cost? And Rosanna said, it's a free webinar. She's like, well, what is the webinar? And Rosanna just read the 3 secret things in it from the sign-up page. And the woman's like, sign me up. So when I went back and looked at the landing page, I noticed that it was below the fold, and if that just gets moved up one little piece. And so, we talk about how important pre-sales is connected into the sales, and you got to get in the trenches, like in the marketing mastermind yesterday. That's what Nicole said she took away from old school, where get on the phone and talk to people. And that's exactly what Rosanna did. Saw success, feed that success back into delivering, a message. And so, it's complicated. Ed, questions, thoughts you have?
Doesn't the warm belly rub go to, say, customer service?
Absolutely. Totally. That's where it's actually area 4. That's where it's actually the best. And that's what, when you own your own company, you start your own company, you're doing all the marketing, all the pre-sales, all the sales, all the servicing, all the client for life. So in the servicing area, you learn that's not really where I'm going to make the most money. And so it's the easiest thing typically to contract out is servicing. So you contract out servicing, but when you own your own company, when you're in sales and you're servicing, you realize when I'm servicing, I'm going to give them spectacular service and I'm going to ask for a referral. But when we dish off servicing to other people, we don't go ahead and teach them the raving fan of how to service in an amazing way, and then we don't teach them how to ask for referrals. And they think, well, I'm in servicing. I'm not in sales. Sales is the one that asks for referrals. No, servicing is where most of the referrals are going to come from. So it absolutely is. And so in the system in box 17, measuring steps and pressure points, that's really where you start breaking it down into. Because if you do the right warm belly rub, everything, and then box 22, measuring costs, and then box 29 is turning your servicing into a profit center. So most companies look at servicing as a cost center, so you want to minimize it. But in quantum thinking, in the BOSS system, in the 530 grid, servicing is not a cost center. It's actually a profit center. You can actually increase your servicing by 20%, and it can produce 200-300% greater return than anything else. So it's a totally different way of thinking about things. So you're absolutely right. Yep. Is Lily still on?
I don't think that it's. I should say that I think it bears repeating and emphasizing that every area of our business is sales. Everybody in the process are in sales. And I think that from a leadership standpoint, that you have to really be training that into your people on all levels.
See, and this is something where people will go ahead and say, oh, I understand what Don's saying. Me, I'll be like, like, okay, how do you teach that to people? I mean, I think it could come from Grandpa's magic couch. I mean, kids, young children are natural salespeople. They know the alternate close. Grandpa, can I have one popsicle or two? They know the assumptive close. Grandpa, we're going to the park. They know that they don't need any research that goes ahead and says, it takes 6 to 10 times to get somebody to say yes. Like, they don't need any research. They are just masterful at selling just naturally. Kids are. And so I think, Don, that's a great one. You can give that some thought. You're a grandfather. And so maybe we do, Grandpa's Magic Couch for you on how do you teach your grandkids that everything's sales? I mean, they know it, but then it's almost like you get in the formal education system and all of a sudden it gets trained out of them, but they're natural salespeople. So I think that would be another topic, Don. And see, when we do that with our grandkids, and you could, if you wanted to, you get your grandkids on just like I do and teach them. And when you get that short video and you get those videos out to your entire group, I forget who it was. Oh, it was Paul Weiner. And he was on one of the Grandpa's Magic Couch videos that I did. And he's like, man, I love Grandpa Boersma a lot more than Mark Boersma. Like, to see you interplay with your grandkids, you're just like a totally different person. So people like that a lot, Don. And so I think, having grandkids, teaching that, having them give us input, like how do you get that through people to where this is what we have to do? Because you're absolutely right, but teaching it, that's been something that's been very, very difficult to figure out a system to do. Great point.
Well, I think it's pretty simple, actually. I think it all comes and starts with the leadership. It all comes from the top down. If the leadership doesn't truly believe that everybody, even the janitor in their warehouse or in sales, it won't permeate the thought process and the culture. It has to be a cultural thing.
Cool. So if you're listening to the rebroadcast of this, you have any questions, feel free to connect with the individual who invited you to participate, or you can call toll-free 888-230-2300. That's 888-230-2300. Or if you're calling in outside the U.S., you can call the U.S.-based number at 630-393-9909. That's 630-393-9909. Remember to invite other people to be part of EC2, Engineer Clarity Community. There's so much in the backstage area that really goes into detail, into depth in what we're doing. So share this with others. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.